Hey YouTube, coming at you today with a little update on these rainbow fish. Now, I'm fiddling with this camera. I'm trying my best to learn how to use this thing and make decent videos, but it is a steep learning curve. So you guys are going to have to bear with me for a couple of weeks. I've got an actual photographer coming in later this week, and I'm hoping that he is going to be able to give me some pointers that will help me learn what I need to be learning to actually run this tank. If you'll notice down in this corner, I've got a bag of activated carbon. These fish have gone through a cordon. When I first got them in, I felt like some of them were developing stress-ick, and so I treated them with a cordon product that is an ick product, along with several other things. But basically, it is a light shotgun approach. It does not use chemicals. It does not use, by chemicals I mean antibiotics or heavy medications. It's basically pepper oil and a mix of other kinds of oils, neem oils. Basically what it does is make them shed their slime coat and then start their slime coat over again. And I feel like that knocked them out of what I considered stress-ick. Corey kind of coined that term, and I feel like it's pretty accurate that there are times when fish will develop not real ick, but an ick that is more because of a situation that they've gone through and that they're recovering from, like the treatment these guys got coming home all in 2 different bags, and it's a lot of big rainbows for just 2 bags, and losing 1 in each bag and then me plopping and dropping them. But I noticed that the Bellerai had, and that's the big guy right here in the center of the screen, slowly floating up, really starting to get to know this fish and like this fish a lot. I kept noticing stringy poop on him, and it struck me that internal parasites. My wife's run a lot of different plants through this tank, and I feel like sometimes you can get parasites from different kinds of plants that you get from local fish stores and farms and stuff like that, so that you don't really, even if you treat them with bleach or do a pre-treat on them, that you don't really know exactly what you're bringing in sometimes when you're bringing in plants. And she's a botanist by nature, so she's really been working hard trying to get the planting to survive in this tank. So once I had treated them, they ran the course of the cordon, I decided to go ahead and use general cure on them again. Like I've said many times, rainbow fish are something that is pretty much outside of my area of command. I don't really know rainbow fish as well as I know a lot of other fish, species of fish, types of fish, but I'm learning. And so I ran them through a course of general cure, and that was just up yesterday. And I haven't really, that turquoise rainbow looked for all the world like it was not feeling well at all when it first entered this tank, the one that I'm following, Turquoise Rainbow, and it looks pretty good now. It's looking like, in fact, the truth be told, all the fish in this tank look like they're doing a whole lot better. Now, I don't know if that's just a product of water changes or being well fed or running them through the medication course. I also picked up some dog dewormer per Lucas's recommendation and noticed that the ingredient in it was fenbendazole, but I thought that if the general cure did not knock out these internal parasites, that I would either treat this tank with fenbendazole or scoop the Bellerai out of the tank and put him in this 29-gallon that is now set up, which was also a steal from Jim. But that tank is now set up and cycled, and it is ready to house this Bellerai. If he looks like he's still having internal parasite problems, I'll scoop him out and treat him in the 29 and see if we can knock it out of him in that. Our little praycocks, as you can see, they're mostly huddled up in a corner here. They have come way down in the world since these new fish entered this tank. They're no longer the dominant fish in the tank, but they do school with the goiter rivers somewhat, and when they're feeding, it's a free-for-all, so they have they're adjusting. And the smaller fish, the thread fins and the Gertrudiae, they are staying off to themselves pretty much, although you can see them scattered throughout the tank. They've scattered out. I did notice for the first time yesterday when I was doing the 25% water change after I had finished the general cure treatment that I found a dead shrimp, which is one of our jade shrimp that we put in, and we rarely see the jade shrimp in this tank anymore. I haven't seen one in days. I do see the LO2 pleco occasionally. He seems to be centered on the underside of the wood that's on the right-hand side of this tank, and I haven't seen Ernie the red ancistrus pleco for a while now, but I'm assuming that he's in there. He goes several days without being seen at all, and then all of a sudden he pops up and you see him for 2 or 3 days. So all in all, this tank is doing fairly well. My wife's still having trouble with brown diatom algae, diatomaceous algae, and I was listening to Ted Judy in Jenny Solid Gold's live stream that she did tonight, and Ted Judy mentioned that he thought a lot of times that a problem with brown diatomaceous algae was a product of lighting, of lights getting old and not being changed or something along those lines. And while I don't know that it to be true, perhaps the lights that I built when I put this tank together, and if you paid attention you saw my light build. I'll just give you a pan of the frame and the lights themselves, and it's basically the lights that I've chosen that I built for this tank are basically can light replacements, LED can light replacements for offices or buildings or what have you, and they're 5000K, and they have some kind of chromatic rating on them that scales the quality of the light up somewhat. So I had assumed that they would be effective lights for this tank, but maybe they're not. Maybe they're creating light in such a way that's giving the tank a bad problem with brown diatomaceous algae. Now we have a little Marineland red LED that my wife moves around the tank, and to add the red to the spectrum that it doesn't quite have. But all in all, the 75 gallon, which I guess has been up and running now for 4 months, going on 4 months, it seems to be a pretty good home for these fish. And as you can see, the Belleri at this moment is not causing trouble. He's minding his own business. He's staying in his spot. He's allowing other fish around him without bullying them. I don't know if that's indicative of him just not being in his breeding dress with his yellow blaze on his forehead anymore, or whether he's finally starting to feel better because of the parasites not causing him as much of an issue. I hope that's what it is. I hope that this last treatment of General Cure has helped him out and also kept any of the other fish in the tank from getting internal parasites. I've been carefully monitoring all of them, if not individually, together to see if I've spotted any more white stringy poop, and I haven't so far, knock on wood. But time will tell. My prognosis for our shrimp is not good. We spent a lot of money on jade shrimp, and we were really excited to get them, but by adding all these large rainbows into the tank, I'm afraid that we may have sealed their fate. I mean, my wife has created all kinds of hiding places for them. You can see there's a huge clump of flame moss that we got from Lucas Brett's all over this piece of wood now, and it creates a large place that the rainbows have to work at it to get down inside of it, although they do on occasion get down in there. When they go into their breeding behavior, they seem to spend a lot of time down in those places. And we're getting a lot of purple coloration out of the Gorder rivers, and Gary Lang and others have said that purple coloration is indicative of breeding behavior sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. It can also be an expression of well-being. But we really seem to be not having as many issues in the tank as we were. And mostly this big Belleri seems to be doing better. I know he's probably lonely. He was in the same tank with the turquoise, and when the turquoise gets around him, he seems to be a lot happier. It's like he knows that fish and recognizes it as an old tank mate. But that's a little update on my wife's 75 gallon. Good luck, YouTube.